The morning sun spilled over the glass towers of Halberton Dynamics, turning the city into a mosaic of light and steel, but none of its shine could reach the hollow ache inside Liora Halberton's chest. The world called her the Iron CEO, the youngest billionaire executive in the industry, a woman sculpted from fire and brilliance. But behind the polished glass walls of her corner office, she was a daughter desperate not to fail, a leader dangling on the edge of collapse, and a human being who had spent years forgetting what humanity felt like. That morning, as she stared at the financial reports and projected downturns suffocating her desk, for the first time in her life she whispered the words she never imagined, "I don't know what to do." And the universe, in its strange, humbling rhythm, placed her answer not in the boardroom, nor in the consulting firm she burned money on, but in the quiet footsteps of a janitor who swept the hall outside her office as if the world had never forgotten how to be gentle. If you believe in kindness, humility, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Spark. Your support helps us spread more stories that remind the world how powerful compassion can be. Liora first noticed him weeks before that fateful morning. A middle-aged man with worn hands and deep-set eyes that seemed to carry storms he never spoke about. His name, she'd later learn, was Orin Vale, and he moved through the building with a silence that felt almost respectful. He never intruded, never stared, never rushed, and he always seemed to treat the place as if it were his own grandmother's home. But Liora, drowning in the constant pressure of her father's legacy, barely saw him then. He was simply part of the backdrop, the man with a mop, while she was the woman with the empire. But that day, something in her broke. Perhaps it was the creditors' warnings running through her head, or the shareholders threatening rebellion, or her father's disappointed voice echoing from years earlier. "Halbertons don't collapse, Liora. We rise." She had risen, yes, but she was falling now, and no one in her elite inner circle had an honest word left to offer. So when she stepped out of her office and saw Orin quietly scrubbing a stain from the marble floor, as if it were the most important task in the entire skyscraper, a strange impulse hit her, sharp, foolish, and desperate. She forced a hollow laugh, the kind only people who are breaking make. "Mr. Vale," she said, her voice edged with exhaustion masquerading as arrogance. "Tell me, what's your advice for a company drowning in its own success and mistakes? Any financial wisdom you'd like to share with your CEO today?" She meant it as a joke, a shield, a way to release tension by letting the universe laugh with her at the absurdity of it all. She expected him to stutter or shrink back, or simply smile awkwardly and return to his work. But Orin did none of those things. He set the mop aside gently as though handling something fragile. Then he stood straight, a posture revealing he was once something far more than a man in overalls, and looked at her with eyes that held no fear, no flattery, no resentment. Just truth. "Stop trying to impress ghosts," he said softly. Liora froze. Orin continued, "You're fighting too hard to live up to someone who isn't looking anymore. And you're forgetting the people who are looking. Your employees, your investors, your city. Lead them, not the shadow of your father." For a moment, the hallway went silent, the kind of silence that cracks open something old and hidden in a person's heart. Liora couldn't breathe. She couldn't speak. It felt like someone had peeled her armor off with a single sentence. How do you know about my father?" she managed. Orin smiled gently, almost apologetically. "People talk. Buildings talk. You can hear many things when you're cleaning floors nobody cares to look at." It was absurd. It was humiliating. It was terrifying. And yet, she felt something for the first time in years: relief. She invited him into her office not out of curiosity but out of a raw, uncontrollable instinct, the kind you feel when you're drowning and someone whispers that they know where the surface is. Within minutes she learned Orin Vale was not at all who she assumed. His words were measured, thoughtful, and painfully wise. He noticed things she didn't. He read people the way she read market patterns, and he asked her questions no one had dared to ask. "Why do you work 12 hours straight without eating? Why do you trust people who benefit from your collapse? Why do you believe strength means refusing help?" His tone was never sharp, never disrespectful, just honest, brutally so. Liora, who had built walls around her soul like fortresses, found herself answering him, not because she had to, but because she wanted to, because this man, this janitor, saw her not as a CEO, not as a billionaire, not as a legacy, but as a human being who was tired. Over the next few days, she found herself seeking him out, not for mop and broom duties, but for clarity. She'd catch him mopping near the finance department and quietly whisper, "Can you spare 5 minutes?" He always nodded, always listened, always left her thinking in ways her high-priced advisors never managed. One morning he told her to walk the factory floor instead of hiding in meetings. Another day he suggested she spend one afternoon sitting with the smallest department and simply ask what they needed. Another day he encouraged her to read the complaints she'd been ignoring. "People don't leave companies," he said. "They leave leaders who won't look them in the eye." Liora began making changes. Small ones at first, then larger. She restructured failing departments. She replaced managers who had been bullying staff under her nose. She called suppliers personally. She held open forums where employees were stunned to see her present. Whispers spread across the company. The CEO was changing. The building felt different. Lighter, warmer, more human. But not everyone was pleased.